Well, good afternoon and welcome. It's Wednesday. It must be time for a webinar. And we've got a good one for you today. Of course, we usually have a good one for you. I'm Kelly Bearden. I'm the director of the CSUB Small Business Development Center. And today we're joined by Elizabeth Hamlin, who's going to be our producer. And in a few moments, we'll introduce Keith Bryce, the president of Mid-State Development Company. And he will actually be talking about a lot of the SBA funding opportunities that we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go through the wide gamut of lending and some of the other programs that SBA has. But it's a great time. The government's open, and so is Mid-State and the SBDC for a lot of deals to come our way. So sit back and enjoy the webinar. Just a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. And let's first mention the SBDC program. For those of you that aren't aware, it's a national program in all 50 states, over 1,000 centers across the country. We're part of the Central California region, which hosts 6 centers throughout the 14 counties of Central California. Our CSU Bakersfield territory includes Kern County and then the eastern Sierra counties of Inyo and Mono. A little bit about our work here is that we're judged in our business starts, number of clients, also the capital that we get for our clients and assist them in acquiring. Also, and jobs are important in the San Joaquin Valley. And there's a little bit of our scorecard over the last few years of how we've done compared to our goals. We do provide as our main resource, number one is high quality business consulting. And that is no cost, confidential to you, the business owner. If you're wanting to start up, also one-on-one business consulting. So we do that with staff, we do that with independent consultants, and also a number of our associate or junior consultants, which are students at CSU Bakersfield. There's a little area of the consulting areas that we kind of highlight in. And then for this instance, startup oftentimes includes the financing and capital that you see, about 12%. So it's roughly over 30% of our inquiries will come in and wanting some type of access to capital. There's our consulting team. They're seasoned, I like to say yet energetic, very experienced and specialized and bring a unique set of skills to the table. If you want more information about the SBDC, there's our website, csubsbdc.com. There you'll find some more information. You'll find success stories on a number of our clients that have enjoyed success in the area. And also there's getting started. If you would like to go there and follow the red button to get started as a client of the SBDC, that is a great place to start. And an easy way, because the email comes to us and we will contact you about setting up an appointment sometime in the very near future. So we've been doing the Wednesday webinar series since 2013. We're doing them about twice a month. Our next one is going to be on America's Seed Fund. It's how can you get a part of $2.5 billion that the federal government gives out annually to fund innovative and technology-enhanced businesses. And I'll touch on that on a couple of slides in just a second. But the SBIR program, or the Small Business Innovation Research, is a very viable program. We're trying to get a lot of buzz and a lot of information out on it. It is something that is underutilized in the San Joaquin Valley, and we want to get more money to our innovative and technology-enhanced businesses. So to get maximum enjoyment out of today's webinar, we encourage that you ask questions. Go to the question or chat box and click on it and ask a question. All of our attendees are muted, so please use the chat or question if you want to communicate directly with us. Afterwards, we will launch a survey after the webinar is complete, and it'll be emailed out. So please, if you would like a copy of the handouts or other materials, or to actually participate in the survey and request a program or something along those lines, please do so. So do that. We're also going to launch a couple of polls in a minute. So that'll enhance your actual webinar experience. Lastly, some tips. There's a mobile application available, and you can download the Zoom software, which is the platform that we now use for our webinars. And we're going to be doing the interactive polls and actually bring in our producer, Elizabeth, to actually launch those particular polls. So Elizabeth, let's see some questions for our attendees today.
All right, thank you, Kelly. So today we are launching this poll, and it's going to be, how much money are you looking to borrow? Are you looking for $100,000 or less? Are you between $100,000 and $250,000? $250,000 to $1 million, or over $1 million? And then we also like to know what kind of projects you're looking to fund. So yeah, land and buildings, equipment, working capital, or acquiring a business.
So we're getting a wide response of actual inquiries. Got a few more seconds. We'll leave these polls open, and then we're going to end it and share the results. So we'll give you about another 5 seconds to wrap it up, and then let you know what's out here. Okay. Well, thank you for voting. We're going to end that and share the results with you. And what we see is that the largest share is the 100 to 250 range, and that's 38% of you. Second place is the 250 to 1 million, which is 31%. And then also a little bit less than that is the 100,000 or less. And what you're looking to fund is you're looking to fund a wide range of activities. You need some working capital, but a number of you need some land, building, and equipment also, and a few need business acquisitions. So thank you for participating in that particular results. It kind of gives us a good idea about what you're looking for out there. And so on the fly, with all of the many SBA funding opportunities, we can actually assist you maybe a little bit better. So I'm going to just talk about a few before I introduce our special guest speaker today. I'm going to introduce a few of the programs that SBA has that are a little bit unbeknownst to a lot of people looking for capital. One of them is that SBA actually provides organizations with money to make microloans. And these microloans are defined as having $50,000 maximum, can be used for a wide range of activities. Usually the interest rates are set by those intermediaries. I believe interest rates for these type of programs now are probably running in about the 7.5%, maybe 8% range. Guarantee fees that we'll talk about on some of the other programs. And these are direct loans from nonprofits. You can contact the SBDC if you think that you might have a need for a microloan. One thing that SBA also is actively a participant, and unfortunately there have been too active the last few years, is in disaster loans. And disaster loans are loans that are kind of two-phase. One are actually physical loss from the actual disaster, be it a fire or a flood or some type of disaster. But the other one is one where your business is harmed and you suffer an economic injury. So you can suffer an economic injury without actually having any physical damage in your business. But if the road's closed to, say, your hotel and you can't get there until the road gets repaired, you're going to suffer an economic injury. There's an 800 number there, which is best served. But if you have any questions about disaster loans and how SBA participates in disaster lending, please give us a call, send us an email, or whatever. And lastly, I want to talk just a second about a little bit of a preview for our next webinar on March 6th, a month from today. And that is going to be on the Small Business Innovation Research Grant, also known as America's Seed Fund. And again, this is about $2.8 billion for both of these particular agencies. If you noticed in California, most of the awards actually go to California and a variety of other states. I did a little analysis, and I believe last year there were a significant amount of awards, of which very, very few of those went to our Central California region, maybe 4 within the entire region, 0 in the San Joaquin Valley, and that is something we hope to fix and hope to spend a lot of energy trying to make people aware of this money that they can get from the federal government that does not have to be repaid and will not dilute the ownership of your small business and is geared towards small businesses. Again, very innovative type businesses. So if you want to open a fuel station, let's open up a hydrogen station and not maybe another brand of gasoline or something like that. But that's kind of the awards that are out there in this particular area, and we hope to do more with that. The 11 state or federal agencies that actually participate in that particular program, contact the SBDC if you want more information. Okay, our presenter today is Keith Bryce, who is both the CEO and president of Midstate Development Corporation, a nonprofit corporation which handles a very specific type of loan program through the SBA and is authorized by SBA to do this particular loan program that he will talk about. Keith earned his bachelor's degree from the University of Dayton. He's also attended a number of banking schools and a long and illustrious banking career that has left him with that Midstate for probably about the last 15 years. And if you'll see, Midstate, since its conception, has funded almost $500 million in loans that have created over 12,000 jobs in Kern County. They are what I like to call Kern County's largest SBA lender. It's great to have Keith back on our Wednesday webinar. Keith, thank you for joining us. And
thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that. One of the exciting things about what's happening is what you said earlier. The federal government is open, so we're open for business. I'm going to cover some topics that are for larger projects, but they will actually be effective for some smaller borrowers. One other little shameless plug for Kelly and the SBDC. If you're not utilizing their services, shame on you. They provide counseling, they provide access to a number of programs, and the key takeaway is that they're free. And I emphasize that again, free. I always like to start these things off by giving you some visual projects of some of the deals that or transactions or customers we've been involved with. These are large ones, there's some small ones, but I give you a little feel of what can be done with an SBA loan. The first one you'll see is a local food market. This is their second location, and in fact, we have another pending request for them. Family owned. If you've not been into this facility, please go. I think they have one of the largest meat counters in Bakersfield. Next, you'll see a law firm, which is downtown. Real estate office. So you get a little flavor and a little feel for the different types of products and properties that we can get involved with. Who we are. Kelly mentioned Midstate Development. Well, we've been around for a while. We've been around since 1980. We were licensed in 1981 as a certified development company. Development company tends to bring in a lot of different definitions. No, we do not develop land. No, we do not develop buildings. We finance them. So if you see our sign on a building or a project and you're calling to bid to provide plastering or something, we are not the developer of that particular project. Midstate was really created to assist in small business financing. We are a participant of what's called the SBA 504 loan program. And the 504 loan program allows us to go out and secure financing using bonds that are fully guaranteed by the SBA. Typically, the program is used for commercial loans for expanding businesses, fixed rate below market financing. Our last fixed rate for a 25-year note was 4.88%. We have loans for 10 years, 20, and 25. Typically, the 10-year financing is for machinery and equipment. We basically focus on fixed asset financing. Advantages, long-term below market fixed rates. I just mentioned the 4.88 rate, which is an incredible rate. A big advantage is the equity requirement, which can be as little as 10%. Normally, you can knock on a lender's door, and if you're trying to finance an asset, you may have to put upwards to 40% down. In some cases, you can get away with 10% under the SBA financing. It allows the bank to do 90% financing. It's attractive to them. And it's attractive to smaller independent banks in that they can do larger transactions using the SBA program, the 504 program, because typically they're in a loan to value of about 50%. Disadvantages. We always have a disadvantage to any program. And our main one is there's a prepayment penalty within the first 10 years. And the prepayment penalty is the result of a fixed rate. If you get a fixed rate in commercial lending, especially on real estate, there is a prepayment penalty. Ours is for the first 10 years of the life of the loan. Our loans can only be paid off at certain times of the year and certain times of the month. So if you do get a SBA loan, contact the provider and see what's the best way to pay it off. The second or third thing is we don't do investor projects. We're not going to do fourplexes or multifamily facilities. We're not going to do shopping centers. So it's primarily owner-occupied property. Classic structure is in the I think it's pink on your screen, as the 40% of the loan is with the SBA, the CDC, which is mid-state. The private sector lender, which is a bank, is 50%, and the customer injection is 10%. An example, and I used a higher rate just for analysis, where you can look at, let's say, a $500,000 project. The bank would lend you $250,000. The SBA would lend you $200,000, and you'd come up with $50,000. So on a $500,000 project, at 20 years financing, you're looking at about $3,500 a month, principal and interest. In many cases, that is comparable to what you're paying on a lease, with as little as $50,000 down. We do have eligibility requirements, for-profit businesses only. That would eliminate churches and schools and anything that has that particular designation. And we are a small business lender, so you have a limit on tangible net worth, can't exceed $15 million. Net profit after taxes cannot exceed $5 million. So, excuse me, $2 million for $5 million for 2 years. Borrowing power, you can borrow up to $5 million, and that could be with one project or that can be with 10 projects. There is a exception for manufacturers or utilization of renewable energy. If you are using both of those, then you can borrow up to $5.5 million. Our projects typically range from about $125,000 to $18 million. Ineligible borrowers, I mentioned nonprofit organization, passive businesses, and prior defaults on federal loans. So if you defaulted on your student loan 10 years ago, it's in the federal government database, you are ineligible. If you defaulted on a FHA loan, then you can be deemed ineligible. We do not lend to banks, gambling concerns, or even private clubs. Eligible use of proceeds, acquisition of land for construction of new buildings. Now, if you are going to build a new building, then you have certain occupancy requirements, and that is you must occupy 60% of the building itself. If you're buying an existing building, it's a little nuance in the program, then your occupancy is at 51%. And funds can only be used for tenant improvements of your particular building, not necessarily the tenant improvements for a tenant that you may have in there. We can utilize our program for remodels, expansion. And like I said earlier, it's also used for equipment financing. Typically, it has to have a 10-year useful life. The program is used quite a bit for used equipment. In many cases, on the new equipment platform, leasing companies are pretty aggressive in doing that. But on the used equipment, if we can get a certification for a useful life of 10 years, then it's perfect for the program, because keep in mind, you're looking at as little as 10% down. Other requirements, personal guarantees with owners of 20% or greater. If you are starting up a business, then we do require additional equity. We require 15%. And if you're doing a startup special purpose building, an example is if you're starting a new gas station, then your equity injection would be 20%. We also have a requirement for our bank that is at 50%. They cannot have a balloon payment before 10 years on the loan. Limited special purpose type of properties, dormitories, cold storage facilities, golf courses, tennis clubs, swimming pools, amusement parks, sports arenas, bowling alley, of which we've done a few here in town, theaters, marinas, gas stations, which we've done quite a few, car washes, hospitals, surgery centers, urgent care centers, which now are popping up on every corner in Kern County and Bakersfield. We've done a few of those. Nursing homes, funeral homes. I guess I shouldn't have nursing homes and funeral homes back to back, but we'll change that in the future. Museums, mini storages, we're doing quite a few of those nowadays. Hotels, wineries, dairies, mines, and quarries. So you can look at that list, and typically if it's something that has a limited use, then it would be considered a special purpose, which will require the 15% equity injection compared to 10. Other requirements, we have fees, a processing fee of 1.5% of the 504 loan, a debenture fee of 1.25% of the 504 loan, a closing fee of $2,500. Though the top two fees are financed within the loan. And there are other costs. There are title insurance, recording, escrow fees. Appraisals and environmental fees can also be included in the financing and your injection requirement. Another good example of a building, a lot of cases, folks have a piece of property and they don't need to do a concrete tilt-up, but metal buildings. We do quite a few metal buildings. We don't have an useful life issue. Some banks will have that. Small shops, as you can see, this is a somewhat of a limited purpose building, but because they did not have lifts or a pit underground, their injection was as little as 10%. Fitness center, this is a larger one, but there are quite a few small fitness centers out there that have been deemed eligible to be financed. Hotels, they are like gas stations, popping up on every corner, it seems like, but they are a SBA eligible project, and probably we are the largest, we being the SBA, the largest hotel lender in the country. As a result, our equity injection, you're looking at 15%. Restaurants, we are not afraid of restaurants. We've done several restaurants in Kern County. We found that restaurant operators will go all in and do everything they can to maintain the real estate. And there's some great operators that we've dealt with. Now, we don't do startup restaurants. I know Kelly makes a good hamburger, but if he knocked on my door and wanted to do a startup restaurant, I would not do that under the SBA 504 loan. Machine shops, folks that have been in lease facilities and needed to increase their presence. And this particular project's been around for almost 10 years now. Medical offices, we do quite a few of those, both on the larger scale and the smaller scale. Residential office conversion. It's kind of neat in that there are areas in our marketplace where you can go in if you get the right particular zoning acceptance to change a property that had a residential use to a office, whether it's a small dental office or a chiropractic office, or a real estate leasing office. It's all eligible. Beer and wine stores. This is probably a higher end beer and wine store, but we finance quite a few of the neighborhood stores that provide food service, both beer and wine, to the areas that they serve. Hardware store, again, examples of retail and commercial use of the program. Small offices, this is adjacent to a neighborhood, but these folks had been in a leasing facility before, and now they purchased it. Franchises, the next two slides I think are franchises. We do finance franchise real estate, and in many cases, they will have a combination franchise loan via the SBA 7(a) program and a 504 loan. Fast food, as I mentioned before, we do restaurants and we do chain restaurants. When I say chain, they are owner-occupied properties. Flooring stores, retail. What we found is there are still retail providers out there. They've fallen into more of niche type of services, and they're doing very well. So if you are inclined or in that particular type of business, please look us up. Deal structure, existing land. We have a lot of cases where we have an owner that's not ready to build, but there is a piece of property that they either own or they want to acquire to build in the future. We can give you the market value of that land. Example, if you bought the land in 2015 and it's 2019, you've held the land for over 2 years. If the land now is valued at $200,000 and you paid $100,000 for it, we will give you that $200,000 value. The key trigger is it has to be owned for 2 years. And that's not 11 months, 1 year, 11 months. It's 2 exact years. We do have structures out there where you have a lease option. Again, you're not ready to buy the property. Your business may be growing, or quite frankly, you may not have the 10% to spare. However, you're in a piece of property or you have the ability to acquire property that you want to own in the future. If the lease is structured properly, where you have a percentage of your lease payments going towards your equity injection, 2-3 years from now, your 10% has already been accumulated. Owner carryback equity, that's done occasionally. Typically, when it's done, it's based on the fact that there's a piece of property or a building that the owner wants to sell, the borrower desires to buy it, and the value is different than where the appraisal is. The owner is hard fast on their sales price. The lender, us and or bank, we're only going to lend based on the appraisal. So the owner may in fact carry back a portion on the back behind both the SBA and mid-state development. Multiple borrowers. We have projects where you can, if you're looking for a 5,000 square foot property, there's only a 10,000 piece of property available, but you have somebody that wants to use the other 5,000 square feet. You can create a partnership as long as it's a owner-occupied property. As I mentioned before, you have $5 million worth of SBA eligibility, and it can be used for one building or it can be used for multiple locations. With the only caveat that if you are trying to use the program again, that if you're not using the building that you had your original SBA loan, that loan does have to be paid off. Under the 504 program, we rarely take additional collateral. The 7(a) program, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on, does take, lean position on equities and homes and things of that nature. The 504 program only focuses in on the property that you're acquiring. We also do loans on leased land. We've had a run of loans in the various airport areas throughout Kern County, which most of that land is leased. And there are properties here in Kern County that the seller does not want to sell the land, but they will put a 30-year lease on the project. That is an eligible type of project for the SBA. Our involvement, we meet with everyone. We'll meet with the client, we'll meet with their broker, their bank, their accountant, their lawyer, their mother, whomever. It's always fun when we have these meetings. Sometimes there is one person in the office, or there may be 6 or 7 with 1 or 2 key decision makers. We like to meet you up front to determine eligibility. There are little nuances in the program that we want to make sure it's an eligible project and business. We gather all the financial information and all the cost information, and we coordinate with your bank. We typically try to start with your bank first because you have whether a deposit relationship with them or a borrowing relationship. It may take a few phone calls, but we typically get through and get to the right decision maker. We also have other banks that we've done projects with that may not be your bank, that your project may be suitable for them. So we'll give you 1 or 2 recommendations. There's always this myth out there of how long it takes to get an SBA loan. The SBA, if you do or you have a completed package, typically give you a 5 to 10 day turnaround. Maybe a little longer the last 2 weeks because they're coming off of a shutdown, but the turnaround is fairly quick. The struggle usually with a longer process is the client does not have all of their cost information or all their financial information together. Thus, it takes a little longer. Talk a little bit about the SBA 7A Guarantee Program. The 7A program is the SBA's largest program. Midstate is a SBA 504 lender, but we get a number of calls about the 7A program. So we're pretty well versed in how it operates and how we can guide you to a particular 7A lender. The 7A program, you can borrow up to $5 million. One of the challenges with the 7A program is you are limited to $5 million. Where with the 504 program, you can get additional eligibility if you're doing some energy savings or if it's a manufacturing facility. There are guarantees from the SBA. And typically, if the loan is $150,000 or less, the guarantee is 85%. Over $150,000, the guarantee is 75%. And that guarantee is important to the lender because at the end of the day, if you do default or have a problem with the loan, the lender is assured that the SBA will reimburse them up to 85 or 75% of the loan. The use of proceeds for the 7A program can also be used for machinery and equipment, working capital, leasehold improvement. Leasing improvements are always tricky in that you have to make sure you have specific cost information and costs from a general contractor. You can use the 7A program for receivables and inventory. Refinancing existing debt. We've seen projects where customers have had to utilize credit cards for whether starting the facility or short-term working capital. If properly structured, that debt can be refinanced under a 7A loan. You can also do construction and real estate under the 7A program. And one of the bigger loan requests that they get is for business acquisition. It could be a partner buyout or you're buying the competition. Under the 7A program, they have different maturity dates, and it's based on the use of the proceeds and the ability to repay. Typically, it's up to 10 years for working capital, 7 to 10 years for machinery and equipment, 25 years for real estate, which is typically the maximum maturity. And if you have a combination of working capital, equipment, and real estate, they'll do a weighted average for it. Interest rates, typically they're negotiated between you, the borrower, and the lender. Usually they're based on the Wall Street Journal Prime plus a spread. Some of the lenders will also use other instruments, whether it's a LIBOR or an SBA peg rate. The SBA-based loan maturity rate guidelines are for 7 years, max rate is prime plus 2.25. That's up to 7 years. For over 7 years, the max prime rate is prime plus 2.75. And if you're borrowing smaller dollar amounts, the rates may be slightly higher. There are fees. Put a little fee grid here for you. Loans of $150,000 or less, the fee's 2%. A certain amount goes towards the lender. For $150,000 to $700,000, the fee is 3% of the guaranteed portion. For $700,000, $700,001 to $5 million, the fee is it's staggered 3.5% up to $1 million plus 3.75 for any amount over $1 million. And there's short-term loans up to $5 million. The fee is 0.25% of the guaranteed portion. Example, for a $100,000 loan with an 85% guarantee, it would be 2% of $85,000 or $1,700 with their lender retaining $425. For a $5 million loan with a 75% guarantee, that's on $3.75 million, which is the guaranteed portion. The fee would be 3.5% of $1 million, which is $35,000, and then you add the difference, which is another $103,000. So you're talking about $138,000 in guarantee fees. The devil's in the details on these things. In many cases, fees can be financed. The SBA is very responsive in that if you are dealing with a lender and you're not getting traction, call SBA Direct. And the SBA will make sure that if you're not talking to the right lender, they have multiple lenders that you can reach out to. You'll see Contact that services the Kern County area. It's Andy Cito. He's a seasoned SBA pro, and he can get back to you fairly quickly. And Midstate's address is 1631 17th Street. We're conveniently located with the Small Business Development Center. So it's a one-stop shop to where you can come in and see Kelly and or one of his consultants, and hopefully they can hand you off to us for a SBA 504 loan project. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly and or Elizabeth. Thank you.
Well, we have quite a few questions here, and I'm going to let Elizabeth handle the questions. Let me ask the first one, and then it's up to her to finish this out. But got quite a few questions. Keep them coming. The first question is, I have a project where I hope to purchase land, building, and equipment. Can I do all three of those with one loan?
You could. We've done a lot of the key is on the equipment and the useful life and the percentage of the equipment. But there's a high probability you could do it all with one particular loan.
Awesome. So get some more questions coming in here. One individual wanted to know, are you able to purchase an existing restaurant through, I believe, the 504? Can you do that kind of deal?
Yes, you can. When you say existing restaurant, the key is with the 504, you're buying the property. If you're just buying the restaurant business itself and not the property, then you're better suited for the SBA 7A loan. Sometimes we will structure a deal where, let's say the seller is selling the restaurant building and the business for $500,000, and the building appraises for $400,000. Then we'll do a 504 loan based on the $400,000, and then we'll use one of our bank partners to do a 7A for the business piece of $100,000. And we always like to have the seller of the business carry back some paper. That's important on any business acquisition, because there are things within the purchase of the business that if you cash the seller out completely, you don't have the ability to reach back. But if you carry paper back, you do.
I hope that is helpful. And thank you so much, Keith. That was a good description of that. So we're also looking at a specific kind of business, and one of our viewers is wanting to know what loan would be best suited for a bed and breakfast inn.
Well, I'm biased because, we operate the SBA 504 loan program. The question would be, is this a startup B&B, or is this an existing bed and breakfast? If it's an existing bed and breakfast where you can determine the value of the real estate and the value of the business, it would be the structure I mentioned to you before with the restaurant. If it's a startup, which you're going to need both working capital and the real estate, then you're probably looking at the SBA 7A program for that. Which the SBDC, this is another plug for them, will assist you in feasibility information. They will not do the projections for you, but they will give you the guidelines as to what you need to do.
Keith, a follow-up to that is, when you're looking at a bed and breakfast deal, are you looking at the cash flow if it's an existing bed and breakfast on how it covers, or can you have projected cash flow based on the next few years?
Very good. All right. So a specific question for Keith. Are you only working in Kern County, or do you serve other communities?
No, we do. We go throughout the state of California. It's got to make sense. We typically follow two things. We will follow our lenders that we've done projects with. We will follow other lending partners, other partners, whether it's an accountant, whether it's attorney, or we will follow a customer. We do several projects, Lancaster, Palmdale area. We do projects over the Central Coast. We do projects all the way up to Madera County. And we've done a few projects in LA County. But we tend to go with partners that we have a comfort level in their knowledge of the areas that we're lending in.
Thank you, Keith. So your eligibility mentioned a $15 million cap on tangible net worth. Can you define tangible net worth for us?
Well, I mean, you're looking at cash, you're looking at stocks, equity. If you're looking at, and we'll see in many cases where a customer will give us a financial statement and they value their home or existing real estate at $1 million. However, the cost is $100,000. We are going to look at the cost value. So that's where we're looking at tangible.
Thank you, Keith. Scroll on down here. We have a question regarding someone has an SBA loan already. Are you able to wrap it into a 504 to purchase a building for a company in a hub zone?
Oh, that's a great question. We cannot refinance under the 504 loan and a 7A loan. However, we can do a separate 504 loan for you in a hub zone area for the purchase of the building, but we cannot refinance a SBA 7A loan.
Thank you. Okay, so do I need an appraisal? What happens if the appraisal is lower than the price of my building? How is that going to affect?
Great question. We've actually run into this quite a bit, to where in certain markets, the sales price and the purchase price of property it exceeds where the appraised value is. The rule of thumb is if it's over the appraised value, then you're going to have to come up with the difference on it. Example, if it's a $500,000 sales price and the appraisal comes in at $475,000, then you're looking at a $25,000 difference that you're going to come up with. Now, the beauty of only having 10% down, then that means you're going to probably be in the project about 12 to maybe 13%.
Wow. Okay. That's great. Good looking. Oh man, yeah, just keep those questions coming. We're really enjoying these. If you, or this person wants to know, do I need a business plan and financial projections in the application?
Well, usually for the SBA 504 loan program, we're dealing with customers that have been in business. Like I said, we do very few startups, but you can do a startup. We tend to push our startup borrowers into at least first see if you can make some money before you go out and commit to an asset purchase. But occasionally there will be a scenario where you're going to need to go ahead and buy the real estate. A detailed business plan, projections, which are heavily weighted with what are your assumptions. You can go online and there's all kinds of projection formats, but we try to get drilled down to, okay, give me your specific assumptions. Why? What's going to cause you to do, $200,000 a month in sales of XYZ widgets? Let us know that. So, and that's where the assistance with the SBDC comes in what, they'll do the same kind of drill we do and get down to, okay, you did these projections. Well, what do they truly mean?
Thank you, Keith. And that's one of our areas that our associate consultants work heavily on, is helping people develop these business plans and projections. So we're always happy to help with that process. And looking into the next question, are you able to lease lands on federal properties, like the Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Service, or Bureau of Land Management? And are there special rules or pitfalls for these federal lands?
I very rarely get stumped, but we've not done any projects on federal land. The requirement on lease land projects for us, and they in fact may be eligible, we just haven't done anything, is that you have to have a lease for a minimum of 20 years. If it's a 25-year loan that we're going to go 25 years. Now, our bank partner that typically will do 50%, they're going to want to have at minimum at least 10 years beyond the maturity of their loan. So there may be some eligibility issues with federal land. Not sure, but I'm going to look that one up. You got me there.
Thank you, Keith. So we touched on the refinancing of the 7A. We also wanted to know, can I refinance my commercial property through the 504 program?
Yes, you can. There's certain requirements under the refinance program. You can actually even pull a little bit of equity out of a refinance. It's got to be a loan older than 2 years. You can't refinance one that's been done fairly recent. It has to be a loan with a commercial lender. The beauty of the refinance is you may have the ability of going from a high and or variable rate to a fixed rate. So, please reach out to us. There are some other nuances in the refinance program, but sounds like it may be an eligible project for us.
Thank you, Keith. And one last question, then we'll let everyone enjoy the rest of their lunch. I have awesome credit. What loan program do you think would work best for me?
Well, congratulations with awesome credit. That's always good to have out there. It's not what's the best loan program for you. Is what's your request? What's your need? If you're needing working capital, then the 7A. If you're needing fixed asset purchase, the 504. If you're needing a really small loan, then maybe the microloan program. You can never go wrong with good credit. That puts you in a higher box and the higher, greater percentage of getting a yes. So continue with the good credit.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you, Keith. Thank you for a lot of information. If you fill out the survey at the completion of today's webinar, we will gladly present you with the slides. So do respond to the survey so we know if you want a copy of the handouts and slides. If you need any additional information on the 504 program, you see Keith's contact information on your screen. If you need any information on the SBDC program, please contact us at the SBDC. Well, that wraps up today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back on March the 6th with America's Seed Fund, the Small Business Innovation Research Grant Program. For Keith Bryce and Elizabeth Hamlin, I'm Kelly Bearden. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.